A conversation with Dr. Greg Ford. Learn more right after this.
I'm transferring to the University of West Georgia.
Columbia University.
Kennesaw State.
UGA. Loyola University in Chicago.
Grambling State.
Shorter University. I'm going to Greensboro College, and we all got our start at Georgia Highlands.
No matter where your educational journey takes you, you can get your start at Georgia Highlands College. Georgia Highlands College. Enroll, engage, excel.
Welcome to Community Watch. Greg,
Doug,
how are you?
I'm good as always. I'm not going to complain too much today.
Well, that's good, because I'm sick of your complaining. I am.
Hey, that's what friends are for. If I can't complain to you, who can I complain to?
I know. You've heard it from me enough. But I know you are a science guy. I didn't actually know that about you initially, but you have sort of become a science guy.
Mm.
So you're going to enjoy our guest today.
I am, simply because I think Dr. Ford is, very interesting in the things that he's doing. But I'm not I'm still a history person. But, as a Morehouse man, we were well-rounded.
Yeah,
so,
but there's all those robotics and...
Yeah. True.
And
STEM is very big for me.
Yeah.
And having a young child myself is, so yeah.
And one thing I've noticed, you are a very curious person. You're curious about a lot of different things.
So what you trying to say?
That's positive. That's all good.
A lot of different things.
Yeah.
True, I am. That is.
But our guest today is going to be Dr. Greg Ford, who is the new dean of science at Georgia Highlands College. Hasn't been there very long, and we're excited to have him. And,
yes.
I think he's a really interesting person. So we'll talk science today with our guest. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We're very happy to have with us today on the show Dr. Greg Ford. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
New Dean of Science at Georgia Highlands.
Yes.
How's that going?
It's been a very interesting 2 months, but I've really enjoyed my time so far. So happy to be part of Georgia Highlands.
So we have not scared you off into 2 months?
Not yet.
Okay.
Well, that's yet.
Good.
Give me
not
yet.
Gotta
have a little time. So Dr. Ford, because the show is not a long show, for our guests, I guess really most of the community, give us a little background about yourself, how you end up coming to Highlands.
Okay, my career started at Grambling State University in Louisiana. I did a bachelor's degree there. My parents always pushed us to go science. I don't know how they knew, but during my generation, there was a lot of opportunity in science. So they wanted us to all go in science, which I think is a unique situation. There were 4 boys in my family. Today, 2 of us are neuroscientists. One is a pilot, and the other one has his own business, a printing shop, so industrial arts. So my parents really pushed science, and so I finished at Grambling, went to Meharry Medical College, got a degree in biomedical science. After that, I worked at a couple of institutions, including Morehouse College, where you come from. So my last job was at Morehouse teaching, which was a wonderful experience, teaching males from all sorts of background, being part of what guided their lives. And at the same time, I was living in Cartersville, Georgia, driving by Georgia Highlands every day. And because I come from a small town, Grambling, Louisiana, where literally within one block, I went from kindergarten to college, I see the advantage of a community college setting, of a small college setting, even though Grambling was a 4-year college. So as a resident of Cartersville, I said, you know, I need to be part of the community. So I want to live in the community, I want to work in the community, I want to be part of watching young people in the community thrive. Georgia Highlands gave me this opportunity, and as soon as the opportunity was available, I took advantage of it. But beyond that, because Georgia Highlands has 5 campuses, I get to be part of 5 communities.
Well, you're going to have to help me a little bit as a non-science person. So you are a neuroscientist?
Yes.
What is that?
So I study the brain. My interest in neuroscience started from my own personal experience. I was born half deaf. And so a lot of my research in grad school was centered around the auditory system. I wanted to learn how our ears worked, how we're able to hear, because even today, there's no cure for deafness. That translated to grad school, where I had a wonderful opportunity to work alongside my brother, who was doing research in stroke. And so we began to work on that project together. For the last 10 years, we've developed a project to where we're looking at a therapeutic for stroke. And we have 10 patents currently and are looking to license those patents and go into clinical trial, but it's to treat stroke and a number of conditions that are associated with inflammation.
10 patents.
Mm-hmm. I only have one.
You
got one?
I'm just saying, Highlands better get all they can for them patents, because, you know, wow, that's impressive. I mean, no, I don't have any.
Good,
I'm just
because I
saying
don't
10
feel so lonely.
Yeah, 10 patents. So, I mean, I want to get back to the Georgia Highlands, but those patents, are they all stroke related, or are they?
No, they're not. So I kind of incorporate my research into what I do in teaching. I tell everyone to diversify. So my brother was interested in stroke. I was more interested in informatics, which is being able to take biological information and convert it into digital information to make predictions. And so based on his stroke research, we were able to take several other models and run side-by-side genetics tests on them. And what we found was there are a number of conditions that there is a primary cause, but then there's a secondary inflammatory effect. Our molecule, which is called neuregulin-1, it's a natural protein, seemed to balance the inflammatory effect. So many conditions, from Crohn's disease to stroke to traumatic brain injury, and the list goes on, the real damage is caused by the inflammation more than the primary cause. So our molecule, we believe, actually balances that inflammatory response, and therefore it improves quality of life. And so we're very excited about it. We're looking again at about 20 different inflammatory conditions right now that we're patent protecting or already have protected.
Now, is this project, that seems too small a word really for what you're doing, but did that grow out of working at Morehouse? Because I know your brother works there now, right?
So it grew out of working at Morehouse School of Medicine. So I did my postdoctoral research with him at Morehouse School of Medicine. And then we started talking about where we wanted our lives to go. He wants to continue the research path, so he's today still doing the research. I want to more focus on education. I want to build the next generation of scientists, or at least be part of that building process. So I went to Morehouse College specifically to teach, but it kept me close enough to the School of Medicine to still be involved in the research. So I taught and did research in the summers. I did all research. And so it was a nice balance to what we want to do. He wants to continue to work on the research, so he does that. I want to continue to develop the next generation of scientists. And Georgia Highlands is giving me an opportunity to do that as the Dean of the Science and Physical Education Department.
I'm just, what do you say?
That's cool.
I mean, that's beyond cool.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
I'm just thinking about the students that gets the benefit of having a dean that's passionate, has a clear vision, you know, because it trickles down. You know, leadership, it all trickles down. So the opportunities I can see students at Highlands having, you know, and I mean, just imagine if you're a student, you got this idea that people think may be wacky. Well, you have a dean who's like, no, I can see that. I've been out there. I can understand dreaming big and things of that nature. So I mean, that's a great resource to have. Congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you. And I totally pulled this off. This was my plan from the start. So I want to ask you, and I want to get back to some other things too, but I want to ask you, and you haven't been at Georgia Highlands very long, and I don't know if Georgia Highlands is typical in this regard, but many of the students that I advise are afraid of science. I mean, afraid of the courses. They put them off till the last possible second. And it's like even more than math, it seems like. I mean, is that beyond Georgia Highlands? And why do you think that is?
Well, I always say, we always talk about the two types of people in the world. I say there are two types of people: science majors and those who hate science. But a big reason is because a lot of students don't know how to approach learning. It's not even about science, it's about learning. I was actually just at the Bartow County Career Academy this morning, where I'm developing a session on understanding your brain. I believe if everybody understands how your brain works and what learning actually is, everyone can be a learner. And so that's one of the things I want to bring to Georgia Highlands as well, but to the community, to make everyone realize confidence is a big piece of it, experience is a big piece, but if you understand how your brain works, you can maximize your learning.
I need to, I mean, you have to explain this to me. So for our, let's say, but just taking our students as the test group, how would you approach them to have a different attitude about it?
So the confidence is the first piece. What I tell students is, if the first day of class is the first day you look at your book, you're behind and you'll never catch up. The first thing you have to do is, once you get your book and you get your syllabus, they're online now. When I was in college, there was no online. That's a whole nother story. But you know the first thing the teacher's going to discuss. If you were to just read that chapter before class, you would sit in class as the most enlightened student that day. And you build that confidence. And once you realize, well, wait a minute, I read the chapter. When the teacher talked, I understood what she was talking about. And the next thing I realized, I was asking educated questions because I had some basic information, but there were some things I need clarified. And at that point, you're becoming an active learner. So I teach the process of how to best utilize your brain and the way the brain works to learn. So it's all based on memory. We have short-term memory. A lot of what students do in school is you want to learn what's for the test, which is memorizing. However, there are steps that you can actually take short-term memories, purposely make them working memories, and purposefully make them long-term memories, so that now your exam is actually a test of your knowledge, as opposed to an event based on something you crammed for. And so I actually teach how the brain works, and then I say, once you understand how to control your environment, you can become a better learner. It has nothing to do with being smarter than the next person. And if you use these techniques, you can actually use less time learning, because I tell everyone also, if you don't have a social life in college, you miss the point of college. But it's all about balancing. And so that's what I try to teach every student is, if you balance your life, you can be an active learner, you can have a social life, and when you come out, you would have actually learned something.
Now, I know we have to go to a break pretty soon, but based on what you just said, Dr. Ford, I'm guessing that, so students who typically perform better, can we say they have, maybe they don't have an understanding, but they have somehow figured out how they learn, even though they may not know the terms for it, but they have kind of figured out the process themselves? Is that one reason some students typically do much better?
I tend to see it's based on exposure. Some students have been exposed to more. I tell you what happens in some schools. Unfortunately, by the time you're a freshman, if they figure out you're one of the smart kids, they stop educating you. Not because they don't want to, but they have to focus on getting all the students through. So once you're a smart kid, you're gonna make it through. I've seen so many students, especially come through Morehouse, that were valedictorians or top students, and then they come to Morehouse and figure out and can't figure why they don't get it. Well, it's because they were never really learners. They were able to take information, and the word I use is regurgitate it back to you, so they can do well on tests in high school. That's not learning. And so part of me being in the community is what I did this morning, going into the high school, and those students are a group that's about to start taking dual enrollment classes next week. So I challenged them. I said, each of you, get your book, read the first chapter, and go to class. And you'll realize you're enlightened on the first day, and it's going to motivate you to keep doing it.
Well, we have to take a break, but we will be back with more from Dr. Ford, so please stay with us.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We're having a conversation with Dr. Greg Ford, who is the new Dean of Science at Georgia Highlands College. So in teaching, your area would be biology?
Biology, yes.
And that's what you were teaching at Morehouse?
Yep, I was teaching introduction to biology, neuroscience, primarily teaching freshmen, and so that's why I was able to incorporate some of my neuroscience thoughts on how to learn into the general biology course.
Well, let me ask you this, Dr. Ford, because you know I'm a community person. So as we look at the community, regardless of the community we're at, how do we begin to address this deficit in education? Because I agree. I think on the whole, most schools probably do teach to the middle. The kids at the very top and at the very bottom probably have less resources or less. So how do we, as a community, what can the community do to address some of this deficit? Because I believe science, when presented in the right way, kids get excited about it. So from a community approach, what does that look like?
If I had the absolute answer to that, I'd probably
Wouldn't be at the table, huh?
I'd be great. I'd be rich at that point. But
you'd get a patent.
I'd patent that. So that's hard for the community. For the college, it's easy for me to say, because what I tell my students is learning doesn't happen in a class. You learn outside of the class. The classroom is really a reinforcement. That's harder for the community. But it still holds true. The only way we're going to improve it is through community. It's going to have to be an entire community effort, because the learning has to happen outside of the classroom. For instance, we have to have programs that shows young people what jobs are out there. So for instance, at Georgia Highlands this summer, we did a program with 8th graders where we took 8th graders, we partnered with 10 different businesses, and for 2 weeks, we took them from business to business to business. So they learned what businesses were in their communities, what jobs were available, and frankly, at every one, they asked, how much money do you make? And they learned that those are really viable career opportunities. So that's the first piece. It has to be a group effort, a community effort between the local school systems, between the colleges that have, those communities that have colleges, and the business community. Because if you can't show the end point, you're never going to get a student there, a kid there. So you have to, one of the big important pieces is take them out and see what jobs are there so that they understand why they're in school. So today, calculus may not make sense, but if we go and tour, for instance, the Budweiser plant, where a large number of the people that work at Budweiser are now engineers. So you have to know that skill to get that job. So the job may seem cool, but there's still the basic skills that go with it. That, I think, can help motivate young people to understand at least why they have to take those classes.
How would you advise parents to try, parents who may not know science themselves or other subjects either, but since we're talking about science as an example, to try to motivate their kids to be more active and to work harder as learners in that way?
What parents have to do is make kids get out the bed and go somewhere and get out the house. There are a number of free opportunities to see what's going on in the community. Kids just need to see them. I mean, even in the program you do this summer, we talked about the fact the first day some of those boys didn't even want to be there, but their mamas made them get out the bed and go. By the end of the week, some of those were some of the most excited kids. So they don't know what they want to do today. The best we can do is expose them to as much as possible. And it doesn't always involve money. You know, we understand everybody doesn't have money to do the museums, but if you really focus, you can find enough free or inexpensive opportunities to get your kid out there and see what's out there in the world for them. So the biggest thing parents can do is force your kids to get out of their comfort zone, go see places and go see things.
So, and I know because we have this discussion, so really it's a three-pronged approach, and I agree with this. You know, you have the community, you know, and you have the educational system, you have the business community. One thing I think parents can do, though, like you were saying, like video games. How many kids spend hours on video games via the phone, apps, computers, when they could actually be outside? And it's funny because I know we took a group of kids fishing a couple of years ago, and these guys were like 15 to 16, had never been fishing. I'm thinking, now we're in the South. We're in Northwest Georgia. There's a lot of lakes. We have 3 rivers in Rome that we're known for, and you've never been fishing. You know, you've never played with a worm. And so that exposure, just free resources that's in your community, I think a lot of parents, we're guilty that, you know, we're allowing our kids to spend too much time. Technology is great, but we're not producers of technology, we're just consumers of technology.
Right.
And our kids are not really learning. You know, they learn how to manipulate what's there, but they're not really understanding how that is created. And so we got to get away from that.
Well, and another piece we have to get away from, as parents, we want instant gratification for ourselves. So if I take my child out to Lake Paris and he goes fishing and, you know, he sees the geese out there, I want him to that day say, by golly, I'm ready to be a scientist. But that's not how the way kids work. What you have to do is just continually expose them to things, and it may be 20 years from now, but they'll come back and say, thank you for taking me to the lake that day because it opened my eyes to something. So we as parents can't look for instant gratification or instant excitement. All we can do is continuously expose. And one day they may come back and thank you for it, but it won't be today.
And Lake Paris happened to be the lake at Georgia Highlands.
Correct.
I mean, we knew, but
That was my shameless plug, the Georgia Highlands.
we use Lake Paris every summer. But now, because we've gone kind of a lot of places, but coming to Highlands, as the dean now of the science department, what do you hope to see Highlands in the next couple of years? What is your vision for Highlands as the science department in the next couple of years?
So nationally, we have a shortage of qualified people, a workforce for STEM. There's instantly today a 10 to 15% shortage of the number of graduates from four-year colleges that can take the STEM jobs available. We, as a limited access two-year college, have a great opportunity to fill that gap. So what I want to see for our division is, number one, we have to get out into the community. And in our case, 5 communities. We have to know who are in the schools. We have to know the students by name. The students have to know us by name. We have to go out to the businesses. We need to know what the local businesses are and what their needs are, so that we can now be the core of what can be this community interaction between the local school systems, the community itself, and the businesses. We would be the core bringing all those together. So we would take the young kids to build the next workforce, to fill those jobs in the community, to stay in the community, have more kids that can then go to the college, and it becomes a cycle. I know it works because that's what I grew up in. My parents worked at Grambling State University. We went to Grambling Elementary, Grambling Middle, Grambling High, Grambling State University. One of my brothers is still there now working in the system, and so it's a full circle. And now 2 of my brother's kids are in the school system. So I know it works. It helps to build the community. It gives the businesses a strong workforce, and it makes better citizens, which is our ultimate goal, to have good citizenship and to fill the workforce.
Well, in terms of, I know one of the concerns that we've had at Georgia Highlands is our ability to offer sciences at the different locations. Do you see a time where we'll be able to expand in that way?
I think we will. It's going to be some creative thinking. For instance, I'm working right now on partnerships in Bartow County and focusing here because, a little selfishly, I live in Bartow County. But I'm already working with the local school systems because one of our big limitations is always going to be space and faculty. Well, we're actually talking to the school systems about utilizing spaces they have available to teach our courses, as well as looking at their qualified faculty who have master's degrees or the proper number of hours to teach and hiring them to teach on our campuses. That's something that's unique. And when we've presented this, I actually have one of the local school systems that's already submitted a list of every teacher that could be qualified to teach at Georgia Highlands. So our only limitations right now really are space and faculty. And so we're working today to fill that gap. And I'm hoping within the next 3 to 5 years, we can have on every campus all the courses required to get an associate's degree from Georgia Highlands.
Well, you know, we used to teach out in the high schools a good bit. In fact, I taught classes at Chattooga High School for Georgia Highlands. And there's really no better way to be in the community than that. So I think that's great, especially if you can get science taught for college level science taught in those different areas.
It is. That's the goal. And right now, I'm looking at Bartow County Career Academy as well as Cartersville High School, where I've talked to the CEO of the Career Academy and the principal of the high school. And we currently have verbal agreements that in 2016 we want to have at least one science course on each one of those campuses.
You know, what I like about all this, though, is that somewhere it seemed like there was a breakdown. You know, things happen, but that community connection between the college and the community. Because I always said, when you just from outside looking in, Georgia Highlands should never have a shortage of students. Too many of our students in this area, when they graduate, a lot of them are not qualified to go to four-year institutions. And when you look at the economic dollar for dollar impact, you can't beat Georgia Highlands. I mean, the education, I have an Associate of Science from Georgia Highlands. I'm a Morehouse man, but I got my start at Georgia Highlands. You can't beat the quality of education dollar for dollar. But it seems like somehow we haven't done a great job of making sure everybody understands the dollar value in the education you get at Georgia Highlands.
So my goal is that even if every student in every one of our 5 counties doesn't go to Georgia Highlands, it's at least on their list of colleges. That's when I say I've accomplished my goal.
Well, that's great. We're coming up on another break here. When we come back, we'll speak again with Dr. Ford, so please stay with us.
I'm transferring to the University of West Georgia.
Columbia University,
Kennesaw State,
UGA, Loyola University in Chicago,
Grambling State,
Shorter University. I'm going to Greensboro College, and we all got our start at Georgia Highlands.
No matter where your educational journey takes you, you can get your start at Georgia Highlands College. Georgia Highlands College. Enroll, engage, excel.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We've been talking with Dr. Greg Ford, who is the new Dean of Science at Georgia Highlands College. I'm guessing there's some parents out there who might want to reach out to you if they have kids thinking about science. So your email address is what?
My email address is gford, at highlands.edu. And I would be happy to meet as many children and as many parents that are willing to spend some time with me.
You're going to be a busy man. Thank you, all of you, for joining us this week on Community Watch, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Dr. Ford.
Thank you.